Hey guys, welcome to another live session. Just waiting a few minutes for more people to be able to join. Hi Nidhi. Hi Suchit. Yes, I'm sure a lot of people have been really looking forward to this. Hi Amrita.
Hi Anshum, how are you today?
Yeah. I'm good. How are you doing?
All good, all good. All great.
Welcome to this live session and thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for inviting me today.
Okay,
I'm
can I
glad I
request
could
you to
make it.
angle? Yeah, that's better. That's
Yes,
a little
yes.
better because of all the questions and all popping up at the bottom.
Correct,
A lot of
correct.
the screen is out. Yeah, so
Yes.
okay, guys. So please join me in welcoming Amrita, who has very graciously agreed to join us today for this session. And as you're all aware, we've been doing a lot of these live sessions on photography using our smartphones. The basic idea being that in lockdown, while most of us may not really be equipped with DSLRs or with even a small camera, I think it's safe to assume that all of us have smartphones. And so we've been doing this series, which basically are around smartphone photography. And today's session, I gathered from all the enthusiastic responses that I've got is that a lot of people are really, really interested because I know why as well. It's because we're all in lockdown, and I think everybody's becoming a home cook. Everybody's been those who I didn't even know ever entered the kitchen suddenly are posting pictures of the cakes they've baked and stuff they've made, etc. And
Right.
I'm sure you've been seeing that too, Amrita, because you're
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
plugged into the whole
absolutely.
food scene. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so I think the perfect topic to get people really interested right now, because like I said earlier, let's face it, everybody's cooking more for Instagram and Facebook than for their families.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So making those pictures look good is as important as the food itself tasting good. So I think most of us are here. Let's just give it a minute more for some more people to be able to join.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
In the meantime, Amrita, let me start with. Would you care to give us a little bit about a background of yourself? Like how you got into photography in the first place, your whole journey. What is your background like?
Right. So I was always inclined towards art since I was 7. I used to cook a lot. I used to help mom cook a lot in the kitchen, and so yeah. So my parents are very sure that she's not going to sit in a cubicle and work on a 9 to 5 job, work in a bank like them. All my family is into banking, so they were pretty sure that she's not the one who's going to do it. So let's put her in some art college. So after my 10th, my mom had checked out a few courses in art schools like LS Reja, JJ School of Art, and all. So after 10th, I started studying art in LS Reja, which where I did my photography majors. And after that, I went on to study in Shari Academy. So
Okay.
there
Right.
we had to choose if we want to get into a particular genre of food. So that's when I decided that seeing my liking for food, I thought I'll just get into food photography because I love cooking, I love to shoot. So why not get this thing married together and get into food photography? So yes, so after finishing Shari Academy, I went to US for a while to study advanced food photography. I was there for a while, and then I came back and started working with brands.
Where in the US were you studying? May I ask?
So that was in Pittsburgh.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yes.
So unlike me, you are a pada likha photographer. I'm an unpad
Yeah, yeah,
photographer.
yeah,
I never studied photography
absolutely.
for a day in my life, other than a few workshops that I did. But I think that's
Okay.
water under the bridge now. This has been almost 9 years that I've been doing this. So.
Right,
But
right.
yeah, good to hear all the background. So how much do you think going to photography school really impacted the way you think and your whole thought process behind your shoots, etc.
So honestly, if you ask me, it does matter a lot. Like you are taught all the basics of it. Then I had a art background, so there I studied the basics of design. So that being put together, I could understand a lot more than other students in photography who were coming from other backgrounds like pharma, who were coming from engineering, a lot of people from engineering. So I see a lot of engineers turning into photographers. They have amazing technical knowledge with regards to photography, but somewhere I feel they lacked initially, in the initial years, they lacked the art part of it, the aesthetic part of it. So I had the upper hand there that I've studied photography and I've studied design. So yes, that makes a very big difference, I think. So
I'm
everybody who
myself.
wants to be a photographer, I think, should have a little understanding about art.
Yeah. Yes, yes, a little. I understand. I'm
Right.
myself a business graduate. I've done my MBA about in 2004. I passed out, and when I decided to jump into photography 9 years back, it
Yeah.
raised quite a few eyebrows. Not really from my family. My family was very supportive, but a lot of the others were like, "What is this guy really doing?" But yeah, it's so far worked out well, and I would say that my education in business, my background in business studies, etc., has also helped me a lot in building up my photography career. Because let's face it, as much as it is an art, it's also business for us. So it has really
100%. So I think that's where we artists lack. We are good artists, we have good pictures, but we can't sell ourselves. So that's where we lack, and that's where you guys come into picture, I think.
remind me to discuss with you after this session how we can join forces over there. Yeah, so
Oh yes,
all right. The
100%.
other thing that I wanted to ask you was, so you already mentioned why you selected food photography as a genre that really interests you
Right.
and get into. What are some of the unique challenges in food photography that you face, which which you don't normally face, let's say in shooting products or even fashion, etc. What are those things?
Right. So I think while you shoot food, you really have to think quick. That is not with product photography because the product is there. You can shoot it for hours and hours. You can keep it and shoot it whenever you want to. But with food, as food is perishable, you really have to think what garnish. If a certain garnish is not working on the particular dish, you need to change it quickly. You need to freshen it up quickly. If you're shooting ice cream, you have to be really quick because it melts quickly. So these are the challenges which you definitely face. And there's another thing which needs to go in that's with any kind of photography, but then it is a lot in food photography because you have to avoid wastage. When you are shooting food, you cannot just go on changing dishes and changing liquids and changing your beverages and just throwing it in trash. So you need to pre-plan your entire shoot. You need to keep the entire crew in loop that you need this. You need to make the stylist understand that these are the things you need, the exact kind of fresh ingredients that you need, or the kind of props you need. Everything needs to be pre-planned, put on paper. Everybody, the entire crew has to know what goes into the shot, and the end result has to be perfect. Like you cannot be
So,
sitting there and saying, "Oh shit, I don't have this," and then ask somebody to run and get it. So yes, that's the challenge which we face
so
with.
are there people who are like specialist food stylists only, not really photographers? They only style the food. Are there people like
Yes,
that?
yes, 100%. So these people know how to make food look good for the camera. So a chef is somebody who will make the taste of it good, but then the food stylist has to be there. Like I personally wouldn't recommend anyone to shoot without a stylist because the chef knows what goes inside it, but then the stylist knows how to make it look good. So basically, they are the makeup artists of the food.
Okay, all right. And is it for food to look fresh on camera? Is it really
Yeah,
important for it to be actually fresh? Because we see all these videos that go around on social media, these food hacks of
yeah.
how these McDonald's and all that do random things to kind of make the food look good, etc. How true is that? I mean, do you really do a lot of jugaad? Do you really use a lot of hacks to make food look fresh, or it's just about actually having fresh food?
No, it's actually like I think I would say it's 50-50. Like 50% is the real ingredient and 50% is your real like the jugaad which you do. Because if you see, we have to substitute a lot of things. Like if you want to shoot something like a milk, you cannot really pour milk into a glass and get those nice splash shots. So there you need to use paints, you need to use Fevicol at times, which will give you that nice splash or the strong hold on the on your bowl. For example, if you're shooting a bowl of chocos and you need to hold those nicely onto the milk. So there, Fevicol comes into picture. You can just place everything over there, and so
Oh
these are
my
the
God, are
small
you telling me
hacks.
all that delicious looking cereals are actually in Fevicol on those shots we see?
It is. Sorry, stylist, I'm giving out your secrets over here, but it's
Okay,
true.
all right. That will put a few people off.
Yeah,
They look so delicious on all those pack shots that we see, and you're now saying
right,
that they. But yes, I mean we've been seeing these videos all over the internet of these, and it's quite crazy. But they do lead to really good-looking images in the end. Our
absolutely.
audience, of course, the majority of them, we do have quite a few professional chefs and bakers, etc. over here as well today. I think live,
Hmm.
but a lot of them are also home cooks, and hopefully they will not have to use any such jugaad or any hacks in their
Yes,
pictures to be
yes,
shooting.
absolutely not.
Yeah. So, without wasting too much more time, can I straight away request you to kind of take over this session and give us your tips and tricks as to how our users using their smartphones can take, really nice looking pictures at home of the stuff they've been making, and even a little bit
Right,
about what tools you use to edit it, etc. Those kind of things.
right. That so talk about how to make your food look like $1 million, and it's as good as simple as when you're doing a fashion photography, when you make the model look great, put on makeup on it to make it look good. So it's the same process that goes into food. You have to make it look appetizing. You have to make the viewer go, wow, that I want to pick this up from the screen, or I want to pick this up from this particular picture and put it into my mouth. So when at the end of this workshop, I think everybody is gonna, the viewers should be able to say that, oh, my picture looks so wow that I want to lick the screen now.
Okay. A warning: please don't lick your screens after this workshop.
So yes,
Okay.
so with regards to shooting things in available resources, the best is to shoot in daylight. Shoot as much food as possible in the daylight, because that makes your food look very nice, appetizing. It picks up highlights, and nothing like having your food on plate look in picture as real as possible, because you need to show the true colors of what you're gonna have in the end. So if your burger has a tint of yellow or something, definitely it will turn you off, and you cannot you say, oh, I want to eat this. So yes, so when you're shooting food in daylight, make sure that you have a huge window in your house where there's a nice soft daylight coming into the. So when you create a scene, make sure that you have a huge window and diffuse light coming onto your subject. If you don't have diffuse light coming, what you can always do is add some butter paper, put some butter paper onto your screens, or probably you can always use the tracing papers or any translucent material like a cloth, or any cloth which will give you
So
nice
I'll
daylight.
just interrupt you for a minute here because a lot of
Yeah,
our users here are absolutely amateurs when it comes
yeah,
to photography. I covered this in my session yesterday, guys, about diffusion of light and how that works. So what Amrita essentially is saying here is that when she talks about shooting in daylight, you don't want to go place your food directly in the sunlight outside and take
right,
pictures. That is not what it means. It means that make use of the daylight, but you need to modify it. The best way is to keep it next to a window through which light is coming. And if the window's got clear glass on it, then that is not really diffuse light. So you may want to cover it with a translucent kind of a material, something like butter paper or tracing paper, or even a thin white cloth, which will kind of diffuse and scatter the light, so you won't get these harsh sun rays hitting your food over there, but it will be a nice evenly spread light coming from one direction. Continue on with it.
absolutely. So most of the times we need side light for the food to look good, because most of the foods that we shoot are textural. By textural we mean shooting a pasta or a pizza, or a bread, where you need to see actually the pores of the bread to be seen, the texture of the pasta, is it hard, is it soft, that needs to be seen. So yes, so when you shoot any textural food, you need to have the light coming from the side and you're shooting at a 90-degree angle. So if I'm sitting here, the light has to come from my side so that I can see a nice gradation of light going from left to right or right to left, where you actually see the shadows as well. Shadows in pictures are
So the
very
window or the
important.
light source can be to your right or to your left. That's what you're saying,
Yes,
right? It should
yes,
be
yes.
ideally, or maybe a little like less than 90 degrees angle also, but basically it should be directional. It shouldn't be flat light coming from right next to the camera, correct?
Exactly, that's right. So I would like to put it as whenever you're placing your light, whenever you're placing a subject in front of the light has to come from anywhere from 9 o'clock position to 3 o'clock position. That's the best way to place your lights, because that makes your food look very nice and textural and doesn't make it flat. So it's very important to have equal amount of shadows in your pictures, because that's how you make a picture look 3D. Otherwise, if you just put the light in front of like in the face of your subject, it's gonna go very flat. So never do that. Never have your lights, or never have even your natural light coming from the back of your subject, because one thing, you're obstructing the light so it doesn't fall directly onto your subject. Another thing is yeah, you don't want flat
You'll,
pictures, so
you'll end up with
directional.
silhouettes if you have the light placed behind the subject anyway.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, so if you think your light which is falling onto your subject is very harsh, you can always use butter papers, or you can use translucent cloths to reduce the amount of light falling in. So you can maybe move the entire table, your entire scene to a little further away from the window, or you can start putting how much ever diffusion sheets or butter paper sheets onto your
Guys,
windows.
yesterday I had spoken to all of you about the inverse square law, where you increase the distance between your subject and the light, and the amount of light basically reduces. That's essentially what Amrita is talking about right now. If the light coming in through the window, despite the diffusion that you put on it, if it's very, very harsh, then you don't have control over daylight. So the thing to do is you can move your food, your subject, a little further away from the window to kind of reduce the intensity of the light. Continue, please.
Correct. So there's one more rule I go by always is whenever you're lighting a subject, have the light onto your left always. Why? Because your eyes are always trained to look from left to right. We always read from left to right. So always have the light going from light to dark in your image, so that you have a nice your eyes can travel very well. The transit needs to be very softly done. So yes, so lighting it from the left is always good. And 9 to 3, always follow the 9 to 3 rule. So when do you use
Sorry,
the
when you say left, do you mean the photographer's left or do the subject's left?
to the photographer's left?
Photographer's,
Because
okay.
because
So
we
right.
yes, we are reading
The way
this
we
to,
write, basically. Yeah, okay, got it. Okay.
yes, yes, yes. So again, then when you're shooting a glossy subject, you need to have the light at the back of your subject, because you need to see the highlights on the top. The glossy top needs to be seen. So for example, if I'm shooting something like a caramel custard or a glazed donut, you need to see the highlights, because the character of it should be established, that it's a glossy surface, and then it makes it look appetizing. Like the key to have amazing pictures is as much as highlights you have in your food, that will make it more appetizing, and it will make your viewers go wow about it. So try to place your food when you're shooting a glazed top. The light has to be anywhere from 11 o'clock position to 1 o'clock position. So always while lighting, make sure that you draw a clock, yeah, a virtual clock around it, how to light it, so you can it always gets easier for you to light up your subject. So 9 to 3 is always a rule in photography.
So somebody is actually asking that exact question. What is the 9 to 3 rule? So 9 to 3 is so it's not really a rule to live by, but it's what certain experts like Amrita use to basically guide them how to use the light. So essentially, imagine your subject and imagine a clock. Okay. So imagine your subject is at the center of a clock. So the light should be coming from anywhere between 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. In that direction, is where the light should be coming. Okay, so if your food is kept at the center of the clock, towards 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, anywhere from that, within that range is where the light should be coming from. That is what she's saying right now.
Yes.
Continue.
So the main light, even if you're shooting in artificial light, even if you want to place an artificial light, you always have to go by the 9 to 3 rule, that I can only place the light at 10 o'clock position or 11 o'clock position, depending on what kind of food you're shooting. If you're shooting a transparent object, the light always has to come from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock position, because that's how you will get the transparency of the subject. Like if I'm shooting an appy fizz, then I definitely need to see the transparency, the true colors, the bubbles, the nice gold, the original gold. Because if I'm placing the light somewhere in the front, the light doesn't pass through the transparent subject. So how do you find it's transparent? Whenever the light passes through something, that's when you understand that it's a transparent object, right? So yes, so always the light has to come from the back when you're shooting transparent.
So you said from 11 to 1, the angle for transparent objects.
Yes, absolutely. And when you do that, your front gets a little darker. So to fill in the shadows, you can always use foam boards, or you can use these metallic papers which you get in the stationery. I'll show you one of the sheets. So this is the sheet which helps you to reflect nice light onto your subject. So if I'm shooting, I have the light coming from here. I put it here in front of the camera or side the camera. It bounces back onto your subject, and you get amazing.
So if you don't mind, just give me a minute. I will keep interrupting you because, like I mentioned,
absolutely,
our viewers today are absolute newbies to this. So when she says that the light for transparent objects needs to come from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock angle, you're essentially talking about behind the subject, right? Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. So essentially, to make objects look transparent in your pictures, you'll be placing a light essentially from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock behind the object, and which is why she's talking about holding something in front, which will reflect that light back onto the subject. When you position a light behind an object, you tend to get a silhouette, a shadow. Okay. Now, in this case, of course, it is transparent, but even because there is a liquid inside or whatever, you will still, some amount of light will get cut. And so from the front, you will find it is less lit. Okay. And which is why you can use something like what Amrita just showed us right now, reflective paper, or even a white sheet of paper, a big sheet of thermocol, to kind of reflect light back onto the subject from the front, so it comes out nice and well exposed. Continue.
There's one tip that I think is very interesting and easily available in everybody's houses. Is if you don't have anything like the sheet I just showed you, easily available thing is a mirror, a small mirror. So if you don't have one, just steal one from your wife's vanity kit and use it for your photography. So what happens with the mirror is, again, same thing. It bounces back light onto the subject. But with the mirrors, what happens is it gives you more light. So the equal amount of light which is falling onto the back of your subject, it's the equal amount that goes back. So you have to just adjust your distance of the mirror to the subject and see how much light you need on it. So when you're shooting liquid, you also need to make sure that the glass that you're using, its character is established, that it's a glossy surface. So here what you could do is use the mirror in the front. It puts a nice vertical highlight onto your glass, and it will give you both at the same time. Like in daylight, you'll see the transparency as well, and the highlight on the glass is also created. So yes, so we are covered with textural objects, and we are covered with the liquids in daylight.
Sorry, somebody's just asking a question. 9 to 3, as I understand, may still not make it on left position. So it could be left or right. Imagine that you're standing with the food in front of you right now. So from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, left or right, is where this whole region is where the light needs to be coming from. Essentially, that's what she's saying.
Yes. So you can, it's not that I'm saying that you should always light it from the left. There could be times when you have a setup only onto your window, only onto your right, and there's a wall that you need to be used. So that's where you can always use the light coming from some other direction. Basically, why I say 9 to 3 is because you want to create as much texture as possible in the food and not make the subject go flat.
Amita, once again, we're losing the audio a little bit while you're talking in between. Is there a window or something open around or something which is causing
Hello,
that?
is it better
Yeah,
now?
this is better. Yeah,
Yes.
this is better. Yeah. Okay.
Hello, hello. Better?
Yeah, absolutely
Okay,
clear.
great,
Okay,
great,
good.
great. So we are done with the daylight part of it. Now, if you're shooting post the sunset, then you might need some artificial light to be used. So what I see most of the people doing is they just put their subject underneath the tube light, and the colors are gone for a toss, because when you shoot something under a tube light, the moment you put any subject, anything under a tube light, the colors start getting a little on the greener side, or any other color changes, like any LED bulbs that you're using, or yellow colored lights. The
Right.
white balance goes for a toss. So there, what you could do is use torches. Anything like a torch, which is an LED torch, which throws a white light. You can start lighting up your subject in the same rules as we discussed for the daylighting. So light up your subject from 9 to 3 position. Place your torch in anywhere from 9 to 3 position. This rule can also work when you're in a restaurant and want to shoot something on the table, but the lighting is very dim. The restaurant is very dimly lit, but you need to add light to your food. So that's when you can ask your friend or somebody's mobile phones use an external light source and put it at the back of it, and then you can have nice texture coming onto it,
Okay.
so that you don't
Amita,
end up with those flat yellow toned pictures.
okay. Couple of people here. Somebody asked a question about whether we can use an LED box light. I think the answer is yes. It doesn't have to be a torch. Any kind of small light that you have, even your phone light, can be used. The smartphone
Absolutely.
torch that we have. The other thing is, a couple of people have requested if it's possible to show us a small demo of this. Do you think it will be possible? Will you show us a little demo about how to position the light, etc. In
Absolutely, we can
something like
do
this?
that.
Yeah.
Yes,
So a little later in the session, maybe you can show us a demo of that.
sure thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Continue,
Okay.
please.
Yes. So again, with the liquids, the same rule as we discussed in the daylight. Again, use a LED, a torch, or anything, any light source at the back of your subject, and you can get the transparency out of your liquids. And yeah, very very important is to have the actual color of the liquid to be seen.
Right.
So yeah, so I think we are sorted with the artificial light as well. It goes by the same rule as the daylight. It's just that
Okay.
using any LEDs or any external light sources
Right.
which you
Right.
can use.
Yeah. I think the important takeaway from this was that tube light is far from ideal, or even LED lights in our houses are far from ideal for shooting pictures of food directly because of the weird color casts that they usually have. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Okay. All
absolutely.
right. So,
With
okay. So your tip over there is basically that it's better to use a torch or some kind of a light where you have a little more control. So with a
correct.
torch, you can be lighting your food, holding it at different angles. Plus, you can
Right.
move it further away or closer to kind of adjust the intensity also.
Right,
So
right.
from that point of view,
In
if
that
you're
case,
shooting a liquid,
anything like a table lamp would also work. Like you can just place it and you have more control over the light where it is coming from.
right, right.
Whereas the tube light is just there and it just throws a flat light onto your subject. So it's
So
better always to have an external light where you can move it around your subject.
So for those of you who are looking at me right now, if I look overexposed and if I look very bright, that's because it's been raining in Pune and all the daylight I was expecting suddenly just dropped. And so just a minute before the session, I had to actually position a lamp right next to the phone right now, which is throwing all this harsh tube light
Okay.
kind of light on my face, which is why I look like this. But yeah, basically lighting hacks. So you can use now this. Of course, I had very little time, so ideally what I should have done was move this lamp a little further away so that it wouldn't look so harsh. The amount of light falling on me would be a little less. But I didn't have enough time to do that. But yeah, so just giving users an idea. We actually spoke extensively about light yesterday during my live session, and this is exactly what I was talking to them about: how to position your light and how distance of the light can be used to kind of adjust intensity. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Somebody
Yes.
is asking, should we shoot completely in the dark and then use artificial light? I'll let Amruta take that, but just to add my bit, I don't think that's a very good idea because if you're using just a light source like a torch or a lamp, and you're making everything else completely dark, then the problem is that there will be no diffusion at all. For your subject to be well lit, yes, it needs to be directional light, but the parts which which are on the other side, which are on the dark side, also need to have a certain little amount of light, which will not happen if you put all the lights off and use just a torch or a lamp. So I don't recommend that. Let the ambient light be, but use a torch or a lamp as an addition. Am I right, Amrita?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where I'm coming to. If you think that the torch is not enough, what you could do is think, as this is a butter paper, you can throw light through it, and you can have a very nice even tone light onto your entire scene. Because if you throw it directly, it will give you a little bit of harsh. Yes, you get a beam, and then you get harsh shadows around it as well. So if you use a diffuser or a butter paper in front of it, definitely it will give you a nice soft feel. And
guys, all your smartphone photographers and home cooks, I think butter paper is your best friend, new best friend.
Yes.
Yeah, because I spoke about butter paper yesterday also. It's usually quite readily available at home. If not, it's available in almost any store, and light when passed through butter paper, because it is thin like tracing paper, it has this property of diffusing. So it will basically, if you pass a torch light or even your smartphone torch you use and you pass it through a butter paper, that acts almost very nice as a very nice light for like a home studio to shoot food and kind of a production, etc. So butter paper is your new best friend.
Absolutely. So now let's move on to the colors, how to work on colors with when you're shooting with your mobile phone. So I see a lot of people getting confused with, oh, what kind of colors do I use around the subject? Like if I'm shooting a red curry, what kind of a prop do I use? What kind of a surface do I use? So always keep the surface or the background very neutral, so that your subject stands out, your food stands out, because if you're looking at an example of a song that is being shot, the hero is always in distinct colors, and the rest of the scene is in some different color. So make your hero, make your food stand out, and your surface has to be always in neutral colors. Keep very minimal texture on the surface, on the background, because your food is already textural. If you add more texture around it, then it is not gonna stand out. So with regards to colors, you can always look into the color wheel parts. Like you can Google it, you can ask me later about the color wheel thing. But while you design a shot, just have the final look of the shot ready in your mind. So for example, if I'm shooting something like a coffee or a chiku milkshake or any brown drink, you need to make the chiku milkshake stand out of the background. So you can always use a contrast color or maybe a white looking background and make the brown look come out of it. Or maybe you can also go with monochromatic tones. Like if I am shooting the coffee which is light brown, you can have a very dark brown background or have a very light background. So go to the extremes of it, so that your subject is always the hero. It has to stand out from your background. And again, with regards to the textures, consider a glass which is completely plain. So if you think your glass is very plain, just add a few textures, a few ingredients over it, so that you make the texture come out of it. And then you have the sides, the surface is also there. Also you can add a few bits and pieces of chiku, or bits and pieces of, if you're shooting coffee, put coffee beans or something. But you can stick to monochromatic tones, that is using shades of browns can be used. Or if you're shooting a strawberry milkshake, using shades of reds and pinks. And so you can go from look at the entire color shades of red. Anything from light pink to dark pink is fine, or anything from light red to dark red, or maroon is fine when you're shooting a milkshake. So that's how I shoot. I am a monochromatic person. So if you look at my pictures, you can always see that most of the shots are monochromatic. Like I stick to one color. If it is brown, it's always the entire frame is gonna be brown.
So essentially, what you're saying, I think this is a very good tip, because even myself as a photographer, when I shoot food, I actually all along thought that I need to bring in as much contrast as possible. So whatever color my food is, I would usually look for something completely a different color to be in the background. Right. And it's very interesting to know that, actually my food might stand out equally if I just use another shade, a darker or a lighter shade of the same color. So you
Right.
kind of have a monochrome. Monochrome, incidentally, guys, monochrome. I think most of us associate monochrome with only black and white. Monochrome actually means a single color. Okay, so shades of a single color essentially means monochrome. So what Amrita is talking about here is, like she explained, if you're shooting something beige or brown, you could place it on a background which is either absolutely dark brown bordering in black or absolutely light brown bordering in cream, and that would still make a beautiful image. The other thing that you just mentioned, Amrita, right now, which
Yeah.
kind of made me think, is you were talking about adding a little texture to the images, and that made me think. Most of us, when we shoot food, like I bake a cake and I place it and I take a picture of it. Okay, I
Right.
don't think about styling it. I don't think about adding more to the image around it, etc., etc. Could you tell us a little bit? Could we digress a little and talk about styling? What goes into styling a food picture to make it look really delicious?
To talk about styling, so for example, I'm shooting a very plain thing like a Srikhand. Srikhand has no texture. Then how do you create texture over it? You can just make swirls of it, put some dry fruits over it. That will bring interest in, because your Srikhand is completely plain. You need to add some texture to it, some colors to it. So if I'm shooting a yellow color Srikhand, you can add a pista over it to bring out the nice green color tones in it. You can put almonds which are brown color. So that brings out more texture and more interest in the subject. And then
And
again, when you, with regards to lighting also, when you finish lighting the entire thing, make sure that you put some extra light, which you call the glare light, onto the top of the subject, like maybe on the swirl or maybe on the dry fruits, which can bring out more 3D effect to your subject.
got it. Got it. And would I be correct in assuming from what you just said that it's always a good idea when you're shooting food pictures to kind of when laying it out, kind of lay out some of the ingredients along with it. So if I'm shooting like typically if you're shooting a strawberry milkshake, probably
Yeah.
if you have a few strawberries around it lying, or for that matter, I've been making a lot of banana bread. So
Okay.
so maybe the next time I shoot banana bread, I kind of besides just showing the slice and the cake itself,
Yes.
place a few bananas around it and certain, just to add that little splash of color, as
Yeah.
well as to kind of, something obviously related to it, which kind of, I've seen that in a lot of food photographs. Would I be right
Right,
in assuming
right,
that?
right, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you always need to tell a story with your visual, because sometimes it doesn't really tell you what the thing is. Like if I keep a pink color glass, just a pink color glass against some background or a surface, you won't really know what goes inside it. So it's always good to have strawberries placed around it, whipped cream placed around it, or milk, or something or the other, like to add elements to tell a story. So always make sure that your single image also tells a very nice visual story, because you need to engage the audience. You need to make them think about it, like what exactly goes into it. So if you see recipe videos, or if you see cookbooks, there are always ingredients lying around it. So when you place an ingredient, don't go overboard. Keep it minimal. Just keep one strawberry, one cut into half, and one whole. So you have variations of texture as well going into it. Then with regards to colors, also you get a variety. So yes, definitely, I'm coming to that. That when you style a subject, make sure that you know the final. You understand, like you have to plan what is the end result of it. You need to be telling a story. Like if I'm shooting pasta, so I should be placing everything that we source from Italy. Like it should tell a story about Italy or an Italian culture or something. If you're shooting for a particular occasion, say for example it's Diwali, so you have to be placing props around it which say that, oh, it's Diwali. So I'm placing laddus, and then I have to have something like diyas or
Diaz
something.
maybe.
So visual storytelling is what it is all about.
Very
So
interesting. That's
whatever,
incredible.
yes, so whatever you place there has to have a meaning. Like you cannot just randomly put things, pick up things like pasta ke side mein you put up an onion, and if it is not going inside it, it doesn't make sense to have it
Makes
around it,
sense.
right?
Right.
Yes.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. Okay, and somebody actually has been asking since a while, should the camera be held in line with the object? So basically, two people have asked us about the camera angle in relation to the food when you're shooting. We
Okay.
spoke about the food itself and its angle vis-a-vis the light,
Mm-hmm.
but what should the camera angle be? Now, straight away, I can answer to whoever asked this that it definitely shouldn't be at the same plane
Yeah.
because then you will lose the 3D feel of the food. So if you have a
Correct.
round cake and you shoot it from the same plane as the cake, you're only going to get the rectangular outline of the cake, which will not really give. So, but what according to you, Amrita, should be the is there like a correct angle to shoot food from as well?
Right. So there are three angles that we go by in food photography. There's one which is the 30-degree, one which is 45 degrees, and one which is the 90 degrees. So when you have to show the depth of the height or the depth of what your food is. For example, I'm shooting a burger. I need to see what goes inside it, what is the height of it. So that's where we can shoot from a 35 degrees, 30 degree, 35 degrees, so that you can also see the top of it. You can see it from the front as well. Like when you look at the entire menu of McDonald's, it's always shot from the front, where you see how many patties go inside, what kind of ingredients go inside. So that's very important for the end user to understand that what I'm going to eat, what I'm going to get out of it. For things like pizza or something, a top angle could work because the pizza crust is always, you know how much, like max
Yeah,
it will be two inches or something.
yeah, yeah.
And you always need to, the end user is always interested in the toppings of it. So for
Correct.
pizzas and things, you can always shoot from the top. A flat lay
So
works.
essentially, you're talking about a flat lay, right? You're talking about a flat lay
Yeah,
option.
flat lay or a 45 degrees also works for the pizza, because
Works
if
for
when
okay.
you want to show the entire scene, like what is there, you want to see the background as well. So 45 degree also works. But when you shoot liquids, you always have to go by 35-40 degree angle, or you can shoot from the front as well, and then put some swirls onto the top, like a whipped cream or some sort of a sauce or something over it. So yes, for liquids it is always 30 to 45 degrees, or even 0 degrees, like bang from the eye
Flat,
level we can
frontal,
shoot.
frontal.
Yes, yes,
Okay, okay, all right, okay,
right.
all right. And what else can you tell us about food photography that is really something that
I think I would
you,
love to talk
you
to people about composition.
sure please.
Yes, so composition, when I talk about composition, a lot of people tend to make the shot look very cramped. So for any shot, negative space is very important. Negative space is important? Because it balances out the entire visual to your eye, and your eye exactly can travel to those directions. The important thing, the hero of the food should be seen properly, and then the negative space is just to balance out, like leave few empty spaces for the visual to be balanced. And when I talk about placing the hero subject in your frame, we photographers go by this rule of thirds, which is dividing your entire frame. So, for example, if you're shooting a landscape image, divide the frame into 9 equal boxes, and you can place your hero subject anywhere on the intersection points of your intersection points of the lines. So I'll
Amrita, I'm
just
just going to
quickly,
yeah, I'm
yeah.
just going to interrupt you because for those of you who attended the earlier session, in the first session where we spoke about tips on basically shooting better pictures with smartphones, one of the tips I had given was that we must all enable the grid line feature. A lot of our smartphone cameras have the grid lines feature.
Yeah.
If you enable that, essentially you see two vertical and two horizontal grid lines which divide the screen into 9 cubes. When you turn on your camera, you will see those grid
I'm
lines
going to show them
activated.
that.
Yeah, this kind of, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, so ideal is to place, and this is not just for food photography, in photography in general, this is like one of the guiding, I won't say it's a rule, it's not that you have to follow this 100% of the time, but it really helps compose better images when you do this in all kinds of photography. Basically you want to place your subject, whatever you're shooting, at one of these four intersections. If you divide your screen into 9 quarters, basically you want to place your subject at one of those intersections, right? So, sorry, Amrita, continue, please.
Yes. So that's about how to compose and how to add textures and about lighting. Now let's move on to editing part of it. Most of the people ask me this question that, oh, what is the software we need to use to edit the picture? So I generally swear by Snapseed. I use Lightroom Mobile. I use VSCO, but the best is I think Snapseed because it gives you control over the image. You can always brighten your picture, sharpen your picture. You can play with the white balances. And the clarity or the contrast, a lot of control Snapseed gives you. You can always correct the perspectives also in that. Another app I use for mobile editing is it's called Beauty Plus. It doesn't work in other areas of photography, but the only thing I like about that app is it gives you control to blur the background or any areas in the visual where you want to blur it out. So mobile phone obviously doesn't let you like it. It is very it will give you this option in portrait mode, but then there you can't really select which areas you need to blur. So this app, it helps you to select the exact areas where you want to blur out. So for example, I'm shooting a coffee mug and there I need to blur out the entire background. So there I can select the background in this particular app, Beauty Plus, and it blurs out perfectly well, and you won't even know that it's blurred later. So it's that perfect, and you can always mask it out and just select the areas where you want to shoot.
I learned something new from you today. I'd never heard of Beauty Plus before. And
I always
if you
go
saw
by
Beauty
this.
Plus, if you saw Beauty Plus somewhere, you'd probably think it's mostly meant for portraits and for
Exactly.
ladies to beautify themselves in post production, etc.
Absolutely. So
So
this
you
is what
use
I
it for
use
food
for.
as well.
Yes,
Nice.
absolutely.
Okay. All right. Okay. The
Yeah.
app is called Beauty Plus, guys. Beauty Plus. And is it an Android app, Amrita?
I'm not sure. I use it on iOS. I think it is on Beauty Plus on
Okay.
Android as well.
All right. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Yeah. Okay. If not, we will probably just post this session, guys. I will research if the app is available on Android. Great. If it's not, I will look for an alternate and get back to you.
It is. I
Yeah.
think it is on the Beauty Plus is on Android. So somebody is asking which app. So I'll quickly repeat. It is Beauty Plus for only the bokehs. Only the bokehs. No, don't use it for anything else. Or for only the
Only to
bokehs
blur.
and only to blur the backgrounds. Use Beauty Plus. For everything else, you can use Snapseed. You can use Lightroom Mobile. And a
Guys,
lot
we
of
had a whole
people.
session on Snapseed a few days back, and I think that was one of the sessions people enjoyed most. And people have been sending me pictures left, right, and center that they've done Snapseed editing on. And I would say Snapseed is professional level software for mobile phones. Yeah, so
Absolutely.
Snapseed is your great friend for editing, and Beauty Plus is the new thing that even I've discovered. Excellent. Okay, all right. Amita, I think we may be running out of a little time, and I think
Yeah.
since people were very keen on seeing a demo, could
Yeah.
we skip to that, and can we look at a demo of how, basically placing the subject in relation to the light, and from what angle you would shoot it, etc. Is that possible?
Just give me 2 minutes. I'll quickly get something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Even it doesn't have to be food for now. It could be just
Yeah.
an object also.
Okay.
Basically, we want to see where you would place it in relation
Correct.
to the light, like we spoke about 3 to 9, and
Yeah.
also your camera angle that you would use for that kind of thing, etc.
Okay. Yes, quickly. I'll just come back.
Yeah. All right, guys. So Amrita will be just right back to give us a demo. In the meanwhile, if any of y'all have any questions that I can answer, uh, let me just scroll back and look at if there are. Do we need to have specific pro settings to be set in the camera? Well, a lot of us don't have pro settings in the camera. Those of us who do, I will maybe in one of my sessions a little later explain how to use pro. If you have pros, if you are able to control exposure completely in your camera, it's always a good option to use. So yes, where do we get this session for future views? Well, I'm hoping that we don't have a problem and this gets saved. If it does get saved to IGTV, it will be right here on my Instagram profile. Okay. What pro setting? So, well, pro setting is something I cannot explain to you just like this, Ashwin. Unfortunately, there needs to be done a whole session. So, day after tomorrow, we are doing a session on exposure. Okay. If you attend that session, you will be able to understand a lot better what you can do in pro settings on your smartphone camera. Okay. How can we see the earlier sessions? Unfortunately, all the earlier sessions have not got saved. just the last session, I think yesterday's session has got saved and it's there on Instagram. You can have a look on my Instagram. It will get saved to IGTV. Yes, yesterday's session did get, the previous ones did not. We had some errors and they did not get saved. So, however, I am planning a very comprehensive workshop sometime soon which will cover all these topics. And I will be circulating that to those who would like to join that workshop. That will happen not on Instagram but on Zoom.
So Ansham, I don't really have everything ready. So what I'm doing is I am quickly showing them a diagram of how to go by the 9 to 3 rule. So this is what it is, guys. So you're shooting from here. Your camera is placed over here, and this is your object, your food. And anywhere from these, like the back of it, or just exactly from the right or the left, you can always light your object to get the most texture out of your food. So always go put your light position over here at the back and never go over here, nowhere over here, because it will only flatten your subject. So never do that. Never have your light anywhere over here. Even at 8 o'clock or 4 o'clock position is okay. But then I really swear by this rule. I really go by this rule. So yes.
But then Amrita, coming back to that, so from the diagram we're essentially talking about side light or backlight. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So then, do you always end up using something to kind of reflect light back from the front as well?
Yes, so I have the reflectors or thermocols or foam boards to always reflect it back onto the subject, because when you side light it or put it at the back, you obviously end up with shadows in the front. So yes, you need to have a fill, or if I'm doing an artificial light, I always have some or the other softbox or something put in the front.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Great. Perfect. That really answers it. Guys, have we left out anything, Amrita? Is there something more
that's about it from my end.
Any specific questions, guys? We can take them now. The 12 position might face the camera, which is not recommended, right? Yes. So the 12 position, like the 11 to 1 position for liquids is what Amrita spoke to us about earlier, where it will face the camera, except that your subject will be between the light and the camera. And in this case, you will want to reflect some of the light back onto your subject from the front. Okay, so essentially the 12 position will be through the subject, and you're backlighting it so that Amrita, I think you can explain it better why we're basically backlighting.
Why we are backlighting? Because you need to. So the easiest way out is just hold a glass of any juice in front of the light, and you will understand why we are talking about backlighting a subject, because that's it gives you the exact color. It gives you the original color. If you throw light from the front, the subject won't show that it's transparent. You need to see the transparency of it, and it is only when light passes through something you understand it is transparent.
Okay. Right, exactly. Okay. More questions, guys? Hold on.
I think somebody is asking about classroom sessions. So yes, definitely DM me and I'll help you with that.
Yeah, you guys, you can get in touch with Amrita. Her profile is linked on my profile where I put the poster today. You can get in touch with her. Amrita, you could also please share your email ID so people can reach you that way.
Yes, it is amrita.karnik@gmail.com.
Simple enough, guys. Amrita.karnik. Yes. So you can get in touch with Amrita for sessions on food photography, and you want to, take classroom sessions or whatever.
Yes.
Okay. Give me a minute.
Somebody is asking about vertical shot is better than horizontal shot. So it depends on where you want to put up the shot. It totally depends. If you want to shoot a vertical, if it's for Instagram story that you are shooting, that I would definitely say go for a vertical shot. If it's for the post, you can do it anyway, but still it has constraints. So try to compose it as a square shot or horizontal also works, but then you have to put borders around it to post it on Instagram.
Right.
So it
Absolutely.
totally
I think
depends
this is
on what kind of food you're shooting. If it's a tall glass, then I would definitely say go for a vertical shot. So
right.
it's
And
completely your creative thing that you can decide which is better. Yes,
which is
sorry, tell
better.
me.
Yes. This is something that I had explained earlier as well. This question had come up earlier. And I usually these days always recommend shooting vertically because most people are putting up stuff on stories and Insta, and it takes vertical well. Plus, we are viewing all this on our mobile phones, so even vertical pictures can be viewed in full screen. However, when it came to video, I had explained earlier that video should usually be shot horizontal because we often end up looking at it on our TV screens, on our computer screens, which are all horizontal. But for food, it's very situational. There is no one answer to this. Like Amrita mentioned, it can be either horizontal or vertical. You have to look at your food. You have to look at what you want to show in that image, and then decide how you want to shoot it. Also, the end where you're going to put that image up will also determine. The one thing to bear in mind is that if you shoot a horizontal image, you can still crop a part of it out and make a vertical image out of it. Okay, if you have some place to spare, you can crop out a part of it. But if you shoot vertical, there is no way to turn it into a horizontal image. You're going to have black sides or black strips on the side. Yeah, so just bear that in mind. There is no correct answer. You can shoot vertically or horizontally. Yes.
Right.
So I think we've exhausted all the questions, Amrita. And if any of y'all still have any questions, Amrita is reachable. She's very graciously agreed to continue answering all these questions. And you can get in touch with her for any requirements you may have for food photography as well as learning. And this has been great. We'll be doing a session day after tomorrow on understanding exposure, which is basically for people with DSLRs. But even those who would like to use pro mode on your smartphones, I think it would really help to understand exposure. So thanks a ton, Amrita. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this on such short notice. And it was indeed amazing to talk to you. And I think even I ended up learning as much as the others. Thank you so much.
Likewise, Anshum, I'm so glad that we made it today, and I see a lot of great audience over here who is really keen on learning something. And at the end of this, I really want to see a lot of DMs coming with nice, great, like whatever tips they've
Guys,
learned today.
please shoot all that beautiful food you're cooking and send the pictures to Amrita. And if possible, you can send the food to me. And all right, take care. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. Thanks,
Thank you,
Amrita. Take
everyone.
care.
Thanks. Take care. Bye.